One, I think that our people don't feel safe in the ward. And I mean, I've talked to a lot of residents, knocking doors, Washington Highlands, Congress Heights, Bellevue, Anacostia, Navy Yard, you name it, various neighborhoods across the world. People don't feel safe. And, our between violent crime, carjackings, robberies, people don't feel have a sense of security in the city. And they're looking to their council member to legislate that. And I know it's been a constant issue in our ward, unfortunately, but despite the data that, crime is down, sometimes the numbers get played with, right? I mean, it's all about how you tell the story and who's telling the story. And so what I do know is that when I talk to folks, the number one priority is always public safety. And so, yeah, I beat up on the police force for establishing a horse mounting unit. I don't see the purpose in it. Maybe there's some data behind that. I don't see the purpose right now, given all of the fiscal constraints that we have and all of the federal interference that we have, and folks literally taking $1 billion from us. Why is that a priority right now? And especially when NPD also had a 6% increase in their budget as well. And so if those resources were being diverted and allocated to Ward 8 and 7D, then maybe I would feel a little better about that. But it's not. It's just across the board. NPD is having a budget increase. And so I don't feel like it's fair that Ward 8 has more violent crime than other wards, but does not have more of the resources to, dedicated to us. And so that's probably going to be a change in thinking to the other council members and a change in thinking to, the executive, because folks want to feel safer over here. And, I'm not looking to, I say a lot to folks, we're not going to police our way to peace. That's not the truth, right? And that's not how we're going to solve this crisis. So I do believe in violence interruption, 100%. And I don't really get excited about a lot of policies, not a lot of bold policies that, excite me, but that was one that I've seen from its inception. I was like, okay, I'm taking note of this, right? And, coming out of Richmond, California, and then other cities have, established their own kind of model of that, and I like it. And I said, okay, and they've, there's been changes across different cities, but I think the numbers do show, and the data shows that you can kind of pinpoint certain folks who are most likely to commit a violent crime. Okay, if we find a way to have them be credible and move into certain move in their certain neighborhoods to reduce that violent crime, I think it will be successful. I think the problem we've had here is that it's always been used as a political tool. And so from its inception, and this is no dig at any politician, but from its inception, the Attorney General and the Mayor both establishing their own independent violence interruption program. For what? I remember I asked Charles Allen when he was Judiciary Chair and I was ANC Chair, and he came to our meeting. I said, why do we have two competing interests? Why is there no coordination between these two agencies? They should be independent of political influence, one, and they should be coordinating if we're going to do it that way, but they were not. And that way we can, one, see what success looks like, two, audit it better, and three, just see if it's effective. So I want to double down on it, right? Without political interference, right? Without the people using it as a slush fund, as Trayon did, and all these other things. Again, it's been just everybody, I guess, wanted to beat their chest and say they did it and they had it, and it's their thing. But in reality, our people need the resources. I've had some violence interrupters say that they weren't interrupting any violence, and I said, well, why do you have the job, right? And that's here on Ward 8. And so I said, well, because there are people I know out there who are credible, who have the connections to the communities, most plagued by crime, who can talk to certain folks who they know are engaged in criminal activity and most likely to commit violent crime. So I think it'll be effective if, one, we audit it better. I see Councilmember Pinto's plan to move to a ward-based model in the peace plan. I think, at least for us, right, I can't speak to others, we need a neighborhood model. Right, and so because certain neighborhoods are very different than other neighborhoods, right? So down Anacostia is 16. That's very different than a neighborhood up on 6th or 4th, right? They're very different, and so they have different issues, different people, different connections. And so if you talk about a ward-wide model, I think that's the government potentially doing what government does, kind of messing up something that's going to work. And so I think it should run independently and, have a focus on neighborhoods, because we can pinpoint these neighborhoods. I mean, we know the streets that are hot. We know the streets that are, getting into certain other beefs with other neighborhoods. A ward-wide model is too blanket of approach, and it's not going to it's not going to aggressively target the folks who are most likely to commit violent crime. So yeah, I think one, we need our fair share of NPD resources, but two, like I said, we're not going to police our way out of this or police our way to peace. We need to truly invest in violence intervention programs the right way.